Harlequins get a first ever Champions Cup knockout win after a hell of a game at the Stoop. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Glasgow got pretty much the perfect start. In this one, we had some great hands, some very elusive running, and it all led to the first try from Scott Cummings, who goes over to score. George Horn converts for 7-0. Harlequins then win a penalty for offside at restart. It's kickable, but they decide they're going to go to the corner, set out the maul, and Glasgow are offside, so back to the corner to go. Glasgow then drive the maul out, but it was early. Another penalty, back to the corner, and this time though, throw isn't straight. Glasgow then are able to clear, so a great chance for Quins to level up pretty early on, wasted. Quins then with another chance to put pressure on Glasgow. Great kick from Evans, leaves them with a tricky 5-minute defensive lineout. Then Quins get the numbers wrong and they get pinged. But, since Glasgow scored, it's all Quins. They keep coming and they get the ball out to space on the left. Murley then goes for the corner. It looks like it's a try, but we have a TMO check and confirms that he actually lost control of the ball as he's trying to ground it. Great defense there from MacLeod to actually force that error. We then have a long period of Harlequins pressure, and it just comes to nothing. Glasgow get themselves back on the attack. They're throwing long passes to try and find space on the edges of the Harlequins defense, but as happened a lot tonight, like very inaccurate passes as well from them, like behind the player. This one they threw directly into touch. Quins then decide to go quickly, but Glasgow get to Murley and they hold him up, force a maul, and then turn the ball over. Quins, though, shortly after that, forced a penalty at the breakdown. And, it's been pretty entertaining so far. End-to-end stuff, and both teams, looking to throw the ball around as well. Dombrandt then gets into the passing channel as Darge was looking to offload. He then gets the loose ball first himself and bursts through the Glasgow line. And it looks like, it's going to be a try, but then he stumbles. He does get an offload away, but Glasgow managed to get back and they win a penalty then at the breakdown. Shortly after then, Will Evans wins a penalty at the breakdown. And after, that was after a great hit from Collier as well, kind of gave him that position. Quins decide to kick to the corner yet again. And they're playing with advantage about 15 meters out when Smith just puts in a lovely crossfield kick for Esterhazen, who just gathers it on the run and goes over to score in the corner. Smith then converts from the touchline to tie it up at 7-all. So he had a pretty good game, and really good from the tee as well, not leaving any points out on the field. Quins then pinged for not rolling away. Glasgow, they decide to kick for the corner. They set up the maul, but there's obstruction, and it's one of those ones where the lifter almost immediately goes in behind the receiver of the ball and creates an obstruction offside. Silly error to give away. We know that teams try to get away with that, like almost as a tactic. But we know it's a high risk thing to do as well, because referees are looking out for it. And any fan of any of the Irish provinces know that they've been pinged for a lot. Glasgow then, they get a warning for conceding too many penalties. Straight after then Tuipulotu gets sent to the bin as they infringe again. Quins, they got a 5-meter scrum. It's pretty central. They decide to go to Smith, and he just steps his way through and over to score. So, lovely feat from him. He stepped first one person and then stepped a second as well and over to score. He converts his own try for 14-7. Kyle Steyn then tackles off the ball, and that allows Quins to go to the corner. Clock is in the red as we're coming, it's pretty much half time, but from the line out they work it in field. Quickly then they swing it back the way it came. A bullet pass then puts Murley over to score. Smith converts 21-7 at half time, and Glasgow with a bit of a hill to climb in the second half. Glasgow then start the second half really well, piling on that pressure at the start and have a penalty, go to the corner, can't get momentum in the maul, and that happened a lot tonight as well. I thought Harlequins' maul defence was really good, much better actually than Glasgow's maul defence was, and they then get turned over when Matthews tries to break away. Glasgow then, they win another penalty, they go back to the corner. This time the maul does come up for them. Matthews goes through the middle, just as, it looked like they were about to lose the ball and get a turnover because they were told to use it, and you could see Horn was there at the back trying to get the ball off Matthews, but then he disappears into the middle of the maul, and then they emerge out the other side and over to score. So, a bit of a risk taken there by him, but it turned out well for them. Horn converts for 21-14. It's then a quick fire double from Glasgow. Some good work from McDowell, Jordan, and then Dobie out wide, and they put Horn over to score. He converts to level it up at 21 all. And then, it's all Glasgow, and you feel like they need to score before the momentum is going to shift back to Quins. At some stage, Quins then managed to push Glasgow back into their own half with some really committed defence and some poor play from Glasgow as well. More kind of, balls going to the deck when they're thrown behind people. But then Green spills a high ball. That was kicked clear from Glasgow, and Glasgow now back in Harlequins half. Will Evans pinged for not rolling away, penalty to Glasgow, and they point to the post. Horn slots it for 24-21. Glasgow in front. We then have a Timo check for a high hit by Marler on Darge. It's high degree of danger, but there is another Quins tackler in there, and the referee said, the other tackler kind of changed the dynamic a little bit, basically saying that he shifted Darge into position where he ended up being hit in the head. So yellow card for Marler. I'm not sure, honestly, on that interpretation. I thought, I think honestly, maybe a year ago that would have been a red card. But in the current environment of the way decisions are going, I think probably yellow was the decision that most fitted the way, as I said, the way things are kind of in this season. But Glasgow then, they got an extra man. It takes a while to get their hands actually on the ball after that, but they then go through 20 plus phases with that extra man, but it comes to absolutely nothing. And it felt like so much time, or so many times tonight, Glasgow, they were just going backwards and forwards in front of the Harlequins defence. No kind of attempts for little chips over the top, or cross kicks or anything to kind of just keep that Harlequins defence on their toes. They were just trying to basically shift the ball, try and draw the man, and give the ball out. But I thought Quins did really well in terms of the way they tackled, for the most part, prevented any kind of offloads that Glasgow were looking for. But yeah, Glasgow felt like they needed someone there to just pull the strings a little bit more in terms of varying up their attack and not allowing Quins to just fill that defensive line to force them to drop a couple of players back, and maybe with an extra man they could have found that space, but it wasn't to be. Quins then isolated the breakdown, the edge of their own 22. Glasgow have a penalty, and they decide they're going to kick to the corner. They're trying to finish the game off at this stage. Early drive from Quins, and it's another penalty to Glasgow. They go back to the corner. Then Harlequins, again, they hold out the maul, and after Glasgow kind of tried to go through the phases by shifting it, they win a penalty at the breakdown. It's Esther Hazen was the man who got over the ball at that stage. At then Quins back up to 15, and Glasgow taking no advantage really from that yellow card period. They really should have scored a try during that time, but they just couldn't do it. Then Mackay knocks on from a Smith kick and gives Quins field position. He's not going to be happy with that, because it wasn't that difficult a take for him, and I think it was just had half an eye on the Quins players coming up on maybe what he was going to do afterwards, and a silly error from him. Quins then compound that by winning a penalty at the scrum. They go to the corner. They need the line out to come up for them here, and then they hit their man. Glasgow give away a penalty in the maul. They go back to the corner. This time, it's a better kick. It's right into the corner. They hit their man again. Glasgow halt the initial drive from the maul, but then the defence kind of melts away as Quins' maul just drives through the middle. Riley is the scorer as they go over. Smith converts to make sure that Glasgow actually need a try at 28-24. Glasgow then have the ball on the edge of the Quins 22, but they're getting pushed back. Time is running down. We're into the red, and they decide they're going to go for a crossfield kick. The bounce isn't kind to them, and it beats everyone into touch. It's 28-24, and Quins win the game. So we're going to have a quick look at some of the stats from the game as well. So we're going to start with tries. So 4 tries to 3. Again, Glasgow really should have gotten, I think, at least one more try, especially during that yellow card period. But you got to give credit, first of all, to the Quins defence, and then you got to question kind of Glasgow's attack as well. Then next thing we're going to look at is the attacking stats. So meters made 219 to 255, clean breaks 5 to 4, and then defenders beaten 8 to 24. So Glasgow beating a lot of defenders, but not actually leading to too many breaks for them. And a lot of it was because they were, a lot of the defenders beaten were kind of going almost sideways from them. Offloads said 0-all, but I'm not sure whether that's true or not. I can't remember, honestly, too many offloads that stand out in the game, but 0-0 doesn't seem right. Passes then 88 to 137. Territory 36% for Quins and 64 for Glasgow. So Glasgow, with so much territory, you would have expected that they would have come up with something at some point, but wasn't to be really for them. On to then defence. So tackles made 145 for Quins, 75 for Glasgow. So Quins making almost double the number of tackles. 86% for them is an okay stat in terms of first up defence. 90% for Glasgow is pretty decent. Turnovers 1 then, 5 for Quins, 8 for Glasgow. So Glasgow coming out ahead in that stat, but it felt like Quins won the more impactful of the turnovers. They got a few close to the line when you thought maybe Glasgow, if they could go through a few more phases, might actually get over the line. Lineouts 1 then, 16 for Quins, 12 for Glasgow. Quins line out at 73%, and it really was a bit of an Achilles heel for them tonight. But crucially, there at the end, when they needed it to function, it did, and led to the winning try. For Glasgow then, at 92%, really good for them. But I think part of the problem was that they were winning the lineouts, but after that, then there was no impact. Like, they weren't going off the top. Their maul wasn't, like, apart from the one try that they got, the maul didn't really have that much impact for them. No lineout steals from either team. Scrums won 6 each, but both at 100%, which makes it sound like it was pretty even. But in the first half, especially, actually in the second half as well, because Quins got that penalty that led to them having to line it in the corner anyway. But yeah, Quins are on top in the scrum for the most part. Then kicks from hand 17 to 20, kick meters 375 to 528. I thought that Glasgow's kick defense was pretty good, and obviously their kick attack as well. But again, it was kind of all compartmentalized. It wasn't really joined up from them. Retain kicks then 4 to 3, and then if we go on to the breakdown, so let's see. Okay, so some of the ruck percentages aren't in yet, so we'll leave those to it. Turnovers at ruck, so 5 for Quins, 8 for Glasgow. We already talked about that. Mauls total then 11 for Quins, 9 for Glasgow, 82% for Quins in the end, 89 for Maul success for Glasgow. But again, it was in that the crucial mauls really that went Quinn's way, both defensively and on the attack as well. And then more maul meters gained 9 to 8. On the discipline then, 10 penalties conceded by Quins and 15 for Glasgow. I think Glasgow were like 12-2 in terms of penalties conceded at half time, so they really turned it around in the second half. 1 yellow card each as well. But I think Quins definitely were the winners in terms of yellow card periods in the game. So in terms of like the two teams, then these are two teams who are not used to delivering in knockout rugby. We talked about Quins winning their first knockout game in the Champions Cup, but it's not like Glasgow have won tons of them either. So one of the teams was going to get that boosting win that could set them on a bit of a run in the competition. It obviously depends on who they're going to play in the quarterfinals and how it's going to go from there, because depending on who wins the other quarterfinal, like there could be home or away. But no, I think because it's second and third, I think they might actually be away anyway in the quarters. So it could be a difficult game for Quins. But let's talk about Glasgow. So Glasgow, I've talked about it so many times on my URC videos as well. They're a team that, they looked the part, but then when it comes to these tough matches where it's do or die in a knockout situation, more often than not, and too many times for my liking, they come up short, and they came up short again today. I thought they did. Let's give them credit first of all. They did really well to come back like from 21 points to 7 down at half time and get themselves back ahead. That was excellent. But then just that little bit of game management towards the end to be able to get themselves over the line. And it's one of these things where you need that bank of knowledge, that bank of experience of having done it before, having gotten through a tough knockout game and being able to either hold out or to get that score at the end. And they failed on both fronts really. They were leading 24 points to 21 with just 5 minutes to go. They couldn't hold out. They conceded, so they failed on that score. Then they had to come forward and look for the score themselves, and it was the same thing back and forth across that Quins line, and the odd kind of mistake or good hit by Quins, and they're back a couple of meters, back a couple of meters, back a couple of meters, to the point where then the only real hope they had was that cross kick that came to nothing in the end. So this Glasgow team it's got plenty of talent, and I feel like when it comes to games like this, too often they underperform. Like they look really good in the URC league phase, but then even in the URC when it comes to knockout rugby as well, they kind of struggle too. So it's something that I feel like maybe they got to get somebody in there like a sports psychologist or something to kind of lift lift that up, or maybe they need to bring experience of winning these lifting trophies or just winning tight games like this into their squad as well. Bring maybe one or two players who've been there and done that, and maybe towards kind of the end of their careers, but someone who could come in and get them to that point where maybe they get those one or two knockout wins, and then the younger players in the squad then have that to go to in situations like this. On to Quins then. So Quins obviously started really well, but they've always got that kind of soft underbelly as well, that teams can come back at them, and that happened again tonight. And against a better team than Glasgow, and a team that were more experienced at this level of the game, Quins probably would have lost that game tonight. The way they kind of let go of the lead that they had, and that's something that they've got to fix if they want to go any further in this competition. But it's a first knockout win for them in the Champions Cup, so let's celebrate that for the moment. And there's the one thing they do have is that they're always kind of in with a shout in a game, simply because they have that ability to score tries from nowhere, and also to kind of score tries and bursts, not just like the single tries as well, which means that even if they are behind, like tonight they were ahead for a lot of the first half, but they do have that ability. We saw against when they played Racing as well in the pool stages, that they can do the same thing that Glasgow did tonight. They can score those few tries, get themselves back into the game, and give themselves that chance then, and if they're within kind of a score towards the end of the game now, they've done it now, they know they can do it, and they'll kind of back themselves as well to try and do it again in a quarter-final too. But congratulations to them. Glasgow, we've got to go back to the drawing board, I feel, in terms of the way they handle knockout games and the way they perform in them, but the night really belongs to Quins.